Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast. I almost called this the number one show. Let's be more specific. It's the number one podcast on the internet, or in the world. God, what is wrong with me? The Cellarcast, episode 150. Can you believe that? That's like a milestone episode, I guess. That's crazy. I think I read somewhere that like most podcasts don't get past 3 episodes or 4 episodes. Yeah, we're well past that. This has been an excessive amount of podcasting. What the fuck? Can you guys hear that? It's like a fire. Oh god, it's summer. It's like a fire truck. Oh god, I wonder if a fire started. That's concerning. Anyway, you know what I learned yesterday? You guys know Alcoholics Anonymous, the alcoholic support group. Apparently, so it's like a whole community, and we've got their own terminology and slang and stuff like that. And they actually have a slang term for what essentially is people who can drink responsibly, right? Like people who don't have a problem, they can have a few drinks and then stop themselves whenever they want. They have a term for those. Those people are called normies. I'm not lying. That's actually what they call them. I couldn't believe it. I found that out yesterday. I thought that was the funniest shit in the world. I don't know if it has anything to do with like the internet slang of normies, but I just find that really fucking normie. Find that really funny. I was doing some interesting reading. I was reading this essay called. I was reading stuff about the Bible. And I was reading this essay called Jesus' Confrontation with Empire, because I was looking through some Reddit thread, and I saw something kind of interesting about how the Bible. It's kind of interesting that the Bible is like a foundational text of a lot of Western culture, but it is not itself a Western text. It was written in like the Middle East, right? And that area, around that area, I'm assuming some of the books were written other places, but that's kind of an interesting thing, because in many ways it's sort of, especially the New Testament, is kind of at odds with other aspects of Western culture. How's in my throat? Specifically, the New Testament and Jesus are fairly anti-Roman, and I thought that was interesting. So I went and decided to look that up. I found this really fascinating essay, which is it was on this website called peacetheology.net, and it basically is the first third about the way that empires and imperialism are represented throughout the Bible. So various different expansionist empires like the Assyrians, the Egyptians, obviously, and then it gets to Jesus and Rome, because Jesus lived in a time where his land was under Roman occupation. And there's actually some really interesting details about it, like some really, really fascinating quotes and interpretations that I never really thought of. Because like there's a bunch of parallels between Jesus and Moses. Moses obviously led the Hebrew people out of slavery in Egypt, from one empire, and so Jesus, there's like an allegory to be made there about a different leading people out of a different kind of oppression in his own day, right? Something I never really picked up on, but one of the things that the devil actually tempts Jesus with when he goes to the desert to meditate is he tempts him with political power, which is kind of interesting. That's a very specific thing that is like, this is a thing that the devil is able to tempt you with. Like, okay, like as if that's like the its domain, right? The specific passages about him saying that the Romans, or who he calls the Gentiles, recognize they recognize their rulers, and the rulers lord their rulership over their subjects, but it must not be so among you. Part of an excerpt from the essay says, Jesus clearly stated that the existing order of peace is based upon the oppressive rule of force. That is the way in which Jesus and his disciples experience the reality of the Pax Romana. The alternative which Jesus puts forward shows that he is not resigned. Peace based on oppressive force is not what Jesus wants. And then I found there's a portion of the essay devoted to Jesus' confrontation with Pontius Pilate during his interrogation before his crucifixion, when Pilate asks him, are you the king of the Jews? Because that was essentially the crime, that Jesus was a rebel upstart who was threatening the Roman rule by claiming himself as some sort of leader. So they've been trying to pin him as some sort of would-be king. So he asks him, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus replies, my kingdom is not of this world. And I always thought of that quote as just him saying, oh, okay, well, Jesus constantly throughout the Gospels is like very tongue-in-cheek about not claiming to be a king or claiming to be a ruler or even specifically the Son of God. He just makes these kind of little allusions to things. He never commits 100%. He kind of lets the listener figure it out. And I always interpreted this as being something like that, like, oh, my kingdom is the kingdom of heaven. It's something that you don't understand right now because you don't understand my message. But there's an alternative reading of it that this essay puts forth that I thought was pretty fascinating, which is where's the excerpt? Essentially. We may best understand him to mean, so when Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world, we may best understand him to mean, my way of ordering human social life in real life is not of the order of political authoritarianism. Jesus still leads a kingdom, a social order in history, but it is about a different way of living, a different way of structuring social life. And so in this way, because the sort of world... If everyone was to act in the way that he preached, or the way that he taught people to act, something like the Roman Empire and their style of governance, especially over the occupied people in Palestine, would not exist, and so therefore his teachings represent like an existential threat to that style of empire. He is rejecting the militarism, the hoarding, like they say the hoarding of wealth that characterizes emperors, and so for those reasons, he was seen as a political threat, and why he was crucified. And specifically, crucifixion is a very specifically Roman style of execution, and it was reserved for, in most cases, I'm sure there were exceptions, but in most cases it was reserved for like political rebels. It was meant to, it wasn't just like, we're going to kill you, we aren't just going to execute you, we're going to like execute you and hang your body up. And they would literally, like, on the outside of cities, they would crucify people out there so that on your way in on the road, you would see, like, that was your warning sign. This is what happens. This is what happens to people who cause trouble for the local order, or the governmental order. And so it was made to not just kill him, but to make a mockery of him, and to make him be a signpost for, this is what happens when you threaten Roman rule. There's also a really interesting passage here. I've never really read Pilate's character like this, but I thought this was really interesting. Pilate, especially in John's Gospel, may be interpreted as a cynical, manipulative politician. He does not genuinely care about the fate of Jesus. He certainly shows no sensitivity concerning Jesus' life and message. Pilate's basic concern stems from his hatred of the Jewish people he is charged with governing. He mostly wants to heap scorn on the Jews' nationalistic aspirations, and thereby to solidify the standing of the Romans in their occupation of Palestine. Pilate's intention is not to placate the Jews, but to humiliate them. Pilate thus serves these purposes by whipping the crowd to a frenzy about killing Jesus, focusing directly on the religious leaders who are central throughout this part of the story. Pilate, several times, tells the crowd that Jesus has done no wrong, only riling them up more. Finally, he says, "Here is your king." The crowd cries out, away with him, crucify him." Pilate asked them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." This was what Pilate had been waiting for. With their assertion that they had no king but Caesar, he got what he wanted. Which I thought I've never read Pilate's character in that way. I wonder if you can make any comparisons to a real life situation in maybe even in that same region that's happening right now. Anyway, I was thinking about that because it is specific. I never realized, I'd never read an interpretation of the New Testament that was so clearly anti-imperial. But that makes a lot of sense to me now. It really does make a lot of sense to me. Jesus' teachings are very they're very personal. Like they're very much meant for like use in your personal life. And they are not I would say not overtly political, in the sense that he never really speaks that much on governmental order or stuff kind of like of that tier, that sort of tier of society. Big stretch. But there's ways that you can read into it, and I thought that was interesting, specifically the anti-Rome and anti-imperialism stuff, because I was thinking about it. Whoa, okay. I really needed a big stretch like that. That was like a 30-second stretch. In the context of like Christian nationalists, I think that's really, I think it's kind of ironic, I guess, because those people are super empire worshipping. They think Rome was the coolest thing ever. And there's like a really funny, what would you call that? Dichotomy? Dissonance, maybe? I think with people who are really, really into that stuff, and also hyper Christian, like super into the Bible and specifically the New Testament stuff, right? Like that, I think is a really interesting, because there's this whole aspect of like complete failure to read into the context of the time in which Jesus lived, or many parts of his message. It's not a new thing to say that a lot of Christians do not act very Christ-like. But here's what I was thinking. This is what this made me kind of eventually got me to, which is I think a lot of those people, like not even just like the nationalists, but a lot of very, very religious people, I don't think they really like the Bible. I think they just like the church. I don't think that they necessarily, like, they probably like it well enough and they listen to it and whatever, but I genuinely think that the appeal more so for them is just the structure and the safety of a church and a church community. And it's not surprising when people use that as a sort of like a housing or like a mechanism for abuse of other people or miswielding of power, right? In the ways that you're probably thinking of right now, but also probably in like economic ways. There's definitely a lot of fraud, I think, that goes on. There's just ways to exert control, like an abusive level of control over people in your community. I think that's what's actually appealing to those people, which is why I have to give props. I have to give props to people who like convert in their lives. I do have to give some amount of respect to it. Like if you see like a white Muslim guy, which maybe there's parts of the world where that's common, but like in America, that's not very common. And when you see that, I'm like, okay, well, you know, I can respect the fact that you actually did your homework and you actually did your own research and you decided this is the message that really resonates with me and I'm going to change my life around it. Whoa, what the hell? My computer just lagged really hard. Okay, that scared me for a second. I'm going to change my life around that. I'm like, okay, no, you weren't just like born into it and that's just the thing that you're comfortable with and you don't really think about it very much. Like, no, you actually you put in the effort, and I can give props to that. Yeah. Well, let's talk about comments. So we have a couple comments. That took a long time. It was like 15 minutes. We have a couple comments. Actually, specific, just one question from last time. It comes from Ryan. The Mid-Atlantic, sometimes transit. So the last time I was talking about the transatlantic accent for some reason. The Mid-Atlantic or sometimes transatlantic accent was developed for public speaking and the burgeoning radio medium. Before speakers, you'd have to speak loudly but clearly in large rooms when speaking to a crowd. Radios also sounded like shit, so the accent made sure words came out as clearly as possible. It was adapted to stage after actors stopped wanting to imitate British accents, and then made it to films when they introduced talkies. Okay, so I was a little bit off in my memory of the where the transatlantic accent came from, but that's some good extra detail. Speaking of mediums, what's your favorite stage-to-film adaptation, or the other way around? Mine may have to be Tick, Tick, Boom. It was originally a solo rock monologue, then adapted into a 3-piece musical before it got turned into a film. The film incorporates more biographical elements from the author's life, songs from the original composer that weren't in the stage show, and really good cinematography. There are a few sequences that can really only be captured in film, being very dreamlike at some points. There's a song where the main character is swimming in a pool, and the lane lines at the bottom look like music bar lines. The film crew picked the only pool in town which was able to be filmed in, but it turns out it was the original pool the author swam in. Very neat. So the question, favorite stage-to-film adaptation or the other way around? I'm the wrong guy to ask this question. I am the wrong guy. I am not much of a theater guy. I have seen, I think a lot of my experience has been, I've seen like book to stage adaptations. I've seen like Animal Farm. I've probably seen something else on stage. I'm trying to think of like stage to film. And I genuinely don't know if I've ever seen both a stage play of something and the film adaptation. I'm really trying to rack my brain. I've been to like a play or a musical. I've been to a fair number of them throughout my life, but has it ever lined up that way? I saw Shrek on stage when I was in like the 4th grade, I think. It was a pretty good production of Shrek, I guess. I think we saw Beauty and the Beast too. I have no memory of those things. I really don't think I have a good example. Like, I think it's just a very specific blind spot of, I've seen, I think a number of, a couple plays which have been turned into films, and films which were based on stage productions, but not like both of them for the same thing. I think maybe the one I'm gonna go out on a limb, and I'm gonna say we're gonna go into like the realm of science fiction. I'm gonna say Moulin Rouge, science fiction, because it's the potential future. I don't know. I remember when I watched Moulin Rouge, and I fucking hated it. I hated every single second of it, and I think it's like a garbage film. And then I thought about what I hated so much about it, because it's a very disorienting film, and you do have to you need like some peace and quiet to think about it afterwards. And it's just that, like, I think the editing and the cinematography is like designed to be aggressive. That's like those YouTube, Moulin Rouge is edited like those YouTube videos where it's like, I've seen clips of these guys, and I don't even know how to describe it. Do you guys remember that video on my side channel, analysis of an 8-minute Minecraft video? Like that, but like way more intense. I don't even want to describe like some of the clips I've seen, because it's way too cringe. It's way too cringe. But that just like constant motion cutting every single second. We're going to use every single piece of footage that we recorded. We're going to do a fucking awful looking digital slowdown by like 10%. I know what a fucking like 20% digital slowdown looks like. You can't fool me, Baz Luhrmann. And I talked to Kat, and she was like, "Yeah, I watched the stage play version of this, which it was a stage play second, which I thought was funny. It was music. It was a film first and a musical second, or like a stage musical second." And she said that she doesn't remember it being nearly as aggressively bad. And I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, no, I can see that. I can actually see that, because I thought about the actual plot, and the plot is like honestly not bad. Like, just on paper, if I was to just lay it out, it's not a bad story, right? There's definitely something good that you can do with it. It's just presented in the most awful way. Just like pouring fucking vinegar into my eyes. But I think that if you were to kind of like slow it down and not be so fucking insane with it, and just like put it in like a stage play format, and some good choreography, I think you could probably turn that into something good. So just for sheer level of improvement between two versions, purely in theory, because I haven't seen the stage version, I'm gonna give it to Moulin Rouge. That's my lock of the week. I want to talk about a really funny story. So typically, whenever there is some kind of kerfuffle with a fan game, it's always like, oh man, the big evil publisher is coming in and they're being jerks about it, and they're shutting down that Metroid 2 remake. Well, let me tell you about Plants vs. Zombies 3, What Could Have Been. So if you didn't know, there is a third Plants vs. Zombies game, simply called Plants vs. Zombies, and apparently it's not good. Apparently it sucks ass. That's lame. That's a bummer. I love Plants vs. I love the original Plants vs. Zombies. I think that's a great game. I got that on the DS. DS nuts. So, because it was so bad, there was a fan project to essentially a fan-made remake, reinterpretation, who knows, of Plants vs. Zombies 3, called just straight up Plants vs. Zombies 3, What Could Have Been. This is not a mod, it is a different game. It's a different game. Usually, if there's like a mod, like a big expansion or sort of like remix of a game that is oh god, that is released just as a mod, I think it's pretty common to include the original title of the game in there, and the mod is like the subtitle. But no, this is a separate thing. This is a different game that's just calling itself Plants vs. Zombies 3, What Could Have Been. Which, just terrible name. Just what an awful sounding name. What could have been. So, There is an old video. It's a couple years old from Wooly Versus. And it's him in a suit in like a white void. And it's a message to indie fan game creators. And the message is, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Do not tell anyone about that shit until it's ready to go. Until it's literally ready to release. Shut the fuck up. And then just drop it out of nowhere. And so it'll be up long enough for people to make mirrors and download it. And then it's just out there. And then you can get your cease and desist and just take it down. And then it'll be out there. Do not talk about it. Don't advertise it everywhere and how you're using someone else's copyrighted material and name for your own game. Just shut up. That's the whole video. Now guess what this indie team did not do. Of course they told everyone. They made a Twitter account. They made a wiki. They made a wiki for it for some reason. And in the wiki, I went and checked this. There's a Reddit thread that was summarized this whole situation. So I'm kind of stealing from that a little bit. I'll link it down below. In the wiki, I had to double check this because it's so weird to me. They list the developer of the game as being PopCap. Well, there's two developers. One of them is Vandergraaf, which is, I suppose, this indie team. But they also list PopCap, the actual developers of Plants vs. Zombies. So EA finds out about this immediately, of course, and they say, "Hey, so here's the crazy thing. EA is actually kind of cool about it. Now, mind you, they didn't have to be cool. So, okay, here's the thing. If you go look at the logo for Plants vs. Zombies 3, What Could Have Been, WCHB, WCHB, you'll notice something. So, okay, those copyright and trademark symbols? So those are different things. A copyright symbol denotes that a work, like a title, is copyrighted, that someone owns that. And the copyright mark is to protect the owner of the property. That's what it's for. We all know that it's often not useful unless you have a lot of money to sue people, but that's what it's for. The trademark, the TM, that is there for the consumer. The trademark symbol denotes that something is official. It means that it's not a bootleg. And if you are making a bootleg, a rip-off version of the product that is meant to mislead people, that is meant to use all of the same branding and packaging and whatever, or characters, and you are... If it's actually worse if you put the trademark symbol on it. Because that is like super misleading now, and you can actually get really fucked up for that legally. So it's actually better to just leave it off. Now you'll find something interesting. They did not make the super big fuck up of leaving the trademark on the logo. They just took it off. They just shaved off the little TM next to Plants vs. Zombies 3, which I find really funny. Now that is technically what you should be doing. But honestly, what you should be doing is just make your own logo. Make your own logo that is distinct. Call it like Plants vs. Zombies triple or something, like the PS triple and the PZ triple, and legally you should be you've at least got one step. So the other problem is that they are just straight up using Plants vs. Zombies character designs, and I think even some assets, like actual sprites and stuff like that. So EA finds this, and they are fully in their rights to go absolutely scorched earth and just fuck these guys over. But they're actually kind of cool about it. And they say, hey dude, we're fine with fan games, we're okay with mods, but making a whole game and calling it Plants vs. Zombies 3, even if you have a subtitle, that's too much. Can you just please like respect our property and just not do that? And they're actually kind of nice about it. They didn't send them a cease and desist. They didn't send them a copyright violation. Nothing. Just, hey, maybe just like change up your branding a little bit and some of the stuff. Like that's a little far for us. So the head of the how do you think that they responded to this? How do you think that the fan devs responded to this? Well, of course, the lead developer replies and says, actually, we are not a replacement for Plants vs. Zombies 3. We're just called Plants vs. Zombies 3. And actually, our audience is completely different. And it's going to be free. And it's not on the Google Play Store, so like, who cares, dude? Like, what's the problem? And EA, whoever is in charge of this at EA, is like, okay, fine, sure, but like, maybe just don't use our character designs. Just replace them with like your own whatever rip-off Pal World fucking versions of our designs, and we'll be cool with it. Like we just don't, like, we literally just don't want consumers to be confused. Like, to feel tricked. And like, we don't want you representing us if you're not affiliated with us, obviously. Which is, like, kind of reasonable, you know? And the guy says, so the guy said some really weird mixed flags, where he basically says, like, the head dev sends this weird, like, confusing, I kind of want to, like, read it real quick. However, what we find confusing is why this project has been singled out. Plants vs. Zombies has a passionate community of creators that have made countless things inspired by its characters and premise, yada, yada, yada. With no intentions or ability to replace or compete with official installments. Yet, you continue to demand the termination of this project. The project currently only stands in its majority as my artwork. There is no game. This is the craziest twist. There is no game. It's just fan art. At the most it is just fan art. It was born out of love and passion of PvZ and its characters. Passion that was as hopeful as the community is now of the franchise's future. Through your hollow words of support, that hope will slowly die out. For you have showed more clearly than ever before that you do not care. And then he describes... He describes like all of his counterpoints that people have been blowing him up with, to things that people have been blowing up at him about, like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? And he starts going into like, you marketed what could have been as a better PvZ3. Only thing that could point at that, as explicitly mentioned by me in announcements, is somewhat the name itself. This guy's wording is a little awkward. Number 2, just don't call it PvZ3 or call it something else. We were already working on a rebrand. When the project started, it wasn't my intention to make a game. But once it took of, the name stuck. But as you may know already, changing that wouldn't be enough. It would be like halfway there, dude. Number 3, then change the art style. That would mean months of hard work down the drain. Oh. Also, they can't own an art style and its quirks. So he basically said, I made a lot of changes to the art style and design for each plant. So he is like, holy shit, this is so funny. So he basically links some concept art, this is the chomper, like the big chomp plant that's like the big mouth, right? He has a picture, it's like a series of concept arts that's showing, it's like various like generations of this one design. So it's the Plants vs. 1 chomper. Plants vs. Zombies 1 Chomper, then the one from PVZ2, then the one from PVZ3, and then his own. And now you'll notice the one from PVZ3 compared to his own is almost identical. He has slightly changed the spacing of like the little head spikes. He's added a couple leaves, and he's taken one of the little spikes on the one of the thorns on the stem off, and changed the look of the tongue a little bit and some of the teeth. It is like the most minute. Like you really have to look back and forth between them for a second to figure out that there's a difference. Like no, he straight up just actually. This is like a serious bootleg. This is just bootleg character designs, which I think is really funny because he was like, "Oh, I worked so hard on this, months of work down the drain," and it's like, then maybe you shouldn't have just almost wholesale copied the character designs. It isn't even like Palworld was extremely tongue in cheek about its parodies of the Pokemon, right? But at least they had like a ton of original ones, and they changed enough stuff, and also it was like a parody, so like it kind of has to look like Pokemon, you know? So this has like no excuse. This doesn't even have any excuse. We're gonna talk about Palworld more in a second, I think. This Reddit thread concludes. At the end of the day, the team considered two options. Just keep working on it in secret, which in my opinion, the writer's opinion, would have been a terrible idea because you got caught. Laying low and working on it in secret only works when nobody outside the team itself knows it exists. And if they tried this, it certainly would have resulted in serious legal consequences. Yep, that's pretty spot on. Also dumb to post that you thought about doing it too. Second, much smarter decision that they went with, just making a brand new IP that's a spiritual successor to Plants vs. Zombies. So they say, one of the last tweets is, what about a new IP? It's actually the direction most voted for internally and seems to be the option we will go with. Oh my god. What I'm getting is the guy working on this is completely clueless. Like, the head dude has no idea what he's doing and has no common sense or idea, like, how to handle a project like this. And there's people on the team. I imagine there's some people on this team who are already at the end of their rope with, like, this the management of this thing, and just, why didn't we just make off-brand Plants vs. Zombies characters? Why didn't we just make... Like, if you look at it, it's seriously... the like, banner image he made, it looks like official Plants vs. Zombies art. The sunflower looks a little bit different, I think. I don't know if that's, like, the sunflower from 3. It looks just like the same characters, with the most minor... It literally just looks like fan art in someone else's, like, art style. Oh my god! The top of the wiki has a fucking thing! Development is currently moving at significantly reduced speed due to corporate greed. Expect new content to be released sooner. What a fucking dumbass. What a fucking clown. Oh my god. Dude. Oh my lord. You know, I like to think that usually we stick up for the little guy here. But I cannot stick up for this little guy. I think I got to tell this little guy to throw in his little towel. Jesus. I want to talk a little bit about, speaking of Palworld, I want to talk about something I dipped my toe into last night, which is competitive Pokemon. I don't know if I've spoken too much about my opinions on Pokemon on this podcast, or maybe if I did it, I think it was maybe a while ago. I'm not sure. So my problem with Pokemon for the longest time has been, I actually like everything about Pokemon. I think the world is really fun. I love the designs of the Pokemon themselves. I think all that is cool. I love the Pokemon anime growing up. There's like a picture of me, like I had the trading cards and stuff. I didn't know how to play the game, so we just looked at them. There's like a picture of me on my grandma's like table in the freaking living room of me at like 7 holding up the big Pokemon field guide, like one of those big books with the reflective, like holographic cover. That shit was awesome. I've always had a soft spot for that aspect of Pokemon and the characters. I just think the games are really boring. Pokemon are the reason I thought I didn't like JRPGs for a while until I played Final Fantasy VI when I was in high school, and I was like, oh shit, wait, hang on, this is actually really sick. This is awesome. I'm gonna go check these out. And like my thing is, so like the idea of like all these cool monsters and putting them on a team and battling them is neat. Like that has some appeal to me, which I think is one of the reasons I responded so well to when I played Shin Megami Tensei 4, because that is like a Pokemon game, but it is not like designed. It's not designed with like babies in mind. Like Pokemon games, the only two that I played Diamond and I played Emerald, because I like the designs from Gen 3 the most. I like that art style the most. I played Emerald and Diamond, and I just found both of them really boring because they are designed in such a way where you can take your starter Pokemon and just only level that one and just spam like the one move throughout the entire game and do like complete most of it. And I just got really bored. I just thought that was boring. I am someone like, I will take the easy way out. I will take the easy way out. If you give me a dominant strategy, I will take it. And the Pokemon games are designed, like I turn into, even as an adult, I turn into that baby who just is going to mash on the A button through every battle, because you don't really give me any reason to do anything else other than, unless there's like a specific type that counters mine. And so like I need something. The games, like the RPG part of the RPG is really bland to me. Move that over there. So someone in a Discord yesterday suggested to me, hey, you should try out Pokemon Showdown, which, if you don't know, is a website where you can essentially play competitive Pokemon for free. There is like a team builder. There's like 1,100 different like tiers and things and different specific games and generations and all that. And you can just put together a team, customize their abilities, their all the little gameplay traits about them and their name and all that. It's literally just like, what if you were playing a Pokemon game, but you just skipped straight to, you have every Pokemon and you can totally customize them to whatever you want. And I did have a little bit of exposure to competitive Pokemon, mostly through a YouTube channel called Big Yellow, who really started as like a fighting game YouTuber. They would take a look at like deep dives on fighting game characters, and specifically like kind of weird little characters or versions of characters. And I found their videos fun. And then they did a bunch of weird branching out to like, they do that, and then they do like competitive Pokemon and like Lego piece history. It's like a really random spread of topics that they do, but out of curiosity, because I just kind of like the way they talk about stuff, and it's nice background listening. I've just watched some of their Pokemon videos, and I'm like, okay, this is clearly like most of this is going over my head because I don't know most of the terminology, but I've picked up on some of it. And I also just kind of like I like poking my head into places where I just have no idea what anyone's talking about. I enjoy the feeling of like watching a video for a game I've never played, and people are just throwing around slang and terminology that of course everyone understands except for me, and I find that fun. There's something about that's amusing to me. It's like, I feel like I'm exploring the uncharted world. I feel like Christopher Columbus, but without all the murder and stuff. I'm gonna come to the competitive Pokemon scene and fucking give them smallpox blankets. Gonna give them Dustox blankets. So I checked it out, and it is weird to get into. It is not immediately obvious what the fuck you can even do, or how to do it, or how it works. I think if anything, they could benefit from having a beginner's guide or something. Like, here's how to get started. Here's how the tiering system works. They just kind of assume. I had to do a little. Those pages do exist, but I had to really go out of my way to look for them. The onboarding process, it kind of assumes you're already a little bit into it, which caused like a little bit of a headache for me. Like a literal headache in terms of like, okay, I gotta take in a lot of information and I don't know how much of it is actually useful. Anyway, so here's how it works. So basically you can go on this website and there's a bunch of different, I think what they call them metagames, which are basically categories. You can think of them as sort of like weight classes, I suppose. And these are broken up by, well, there's a bunch of like random ones. So the problem is that there's a bunch of different Pokemon games and different Pokemon generations. They have different sets of Pokemon, and within those there's like good ones and bad ones and all that. So they tend to split them up. I from what I can tell, there's like a bunch of niche little metagames, right, that are very specific, but mainly it's like goes by generation, and then within each generation the most common played metagames are what they call overuse. So they have all these tiers. They have all these tiers within various generations, and the generations, these tiers reflect. They're actually kind of like a ratio system from something like Marvel 2, like the fan system, right? It's a fan-developed tiering system to split up the available options for teams in such a way that basically like the have you ever played a game where there's like a bunch, there's like 100 characters or whatever, but there's like 10 good ones? Again, like Marvel 2 kind of suffers from that, where it's like there's 52 characters and there's like 12 that are godly. And and if you're playing for real for money and you have no restrictions, that's just kind of what people are going to run. This is like and that's what the ratio system was introduced to sort of fix, is to like force you to mix up your team, to diversify it. That's kind of what the tiering system is. So basically the tiers are based on usage. So like how commonly are these Pokemon used? And that is then broken up into, so that it can actually shift and change as the games are played more, and they can be reevaluated, and Pokemon can go in and out. Generally, the way that it works is that within the most of them have like an Uber tier, and Uber tier is kind of that's actually for like the top tiers. I find this kind of amusing. The top tiers are considered so strong, and they make the game so boring or whatever, or they have such a degenerative centralizing effect on the meta, that they're basically just in their own tier. And that just sort of like, so like the S plus tier, that's their own guys. And they're like A plus, maybe S tier Pokemon, those are below them or whatever. Those are below them, and those are what are actually played in the most common formats, which is called overused. And then it kind of varies depending on which generation you're looking at. But most of them have like an overused, an underused, and like a zero use, I think, or never used or something like that. Some variation of that. And that basically correlates to how strong they are. Pokemon that are underused are generally considered kind of weak. The low tier, like never used kind of thing, are the bottom tiers. And so if you're playing overused, you can pick from anything from anyone in the overused tier and below. So you're actually not limited. You're not locked. I think that's cool, because it means that someone can actually come up with like, oh, what's a neat little team, a team idea that's using maybe some lower tier Pokemon or something like that. So you can't use anything above your tier, but you can use stuff below it and within it, of course. So all of that was like a lot of information to pack in. And I decided like, okay, why don't I just like, because there is like a bot that you can play against on one of the sites. There is a bot that has like teams for a couple different formats and metagames. So I was like, let me just put together, because I need a little bit of training. I need a little bit of training mode. So let me just put together a quick team, like a team that I think would be neat, of just Pokemon that I like. And then I'll just play against the bot, because I realize I don't really know that much about how Pokemon works. It's been a while since I played one of the games, and the actual like battle system and the pacing and the mechanics of like swapping them out and stuff was a little lost on me, and I was rusty on it. So I wanted to refresh my memory. So I put together what I call the big body team, because I think the big bodies are fun. So it was like, what was it, like Slacking? It was like the big sloth Pokemon. Snorlax, who apparently is really good. This is specifically for Gen 3, which they call it advanced or ADV or advanced, because it just encompasses all of the Game Boy Advanced Pokemons. Snorlax. What else did I have? Metagross, who I've always thought was a really cool looking Pokemon. I had... What the hell did I have? I had Salamence and Gyarados, and I think I'm forgetting one. Oh, and I had Donphan, the elephant one, who I've always loved. I've always loved the big elephant. I love the big boys. So I put all those on a team, and then I looked up, because they have a whole wiki and a whole site that is like, you can click on the specific Pokemon from that generation, and they will literally tell you like, here is the build, and here are various different builds for this Pokemon and strategies and team synergies and stuff. And I'm like, great. And that kind of helped me understand a little bit more of what I was doing. So I played some bot matches, and I'm not gonna lie, kind of fun. Kind of enjoyable. I actually started to understand. These are the things that you never get from just playing the games, playing just the single player games. But there's some interesting little like metagaming and like mind gaming to Pokemon battles. When I say that they never do that, is because most, from what I understand, like, most of the trainers and the NPC battles that you fight in Pokemon don't have like great teams, and they never switch Pokemon out. They never do that. They've never programmed that in for some reason. Here, like, swapping Pokemon in and out seems like it's actually a really important mechanic, because you can straight up just like completely fuck someone up if they queue up a move, and then you swap out a Pokemon for one of your Pokemon for one that is just immune to it or highly resistant to that one. And then it's like, what's going on? There's like a ton of different moves. A lot of them are useless. What I find funny is Pokemon is clearly not a game that is balanced around competitive play. So that means that there has to be... They literally, like, when you're selecting your moves for your Pokemon, there's like a whole list, and you just click on the ones you want. But a big part of the list is, well, for a lot of them, is like typically useless moves. Just like, don't use these. just do not use these moves. And I was just, I don't know, reading up on like the strategy and like team compositions, and I was like, oh shit, actually, there's something interesting here. There's something interesting, especially like because the fact that you don't know what your opponent is playing or the specific type of build of a Pokemon that they're playing. Like maybe they're picking a build. So like the Metagross, I thought it's a fun idea to have a Metagross with like Explode, because it basically one hit KOs like anything it's gonna go up against, at the cost of also suiciding your Metagross. So that's like a fun little thing to have in my pocket. But there's like whole strategies around like if someone puts sets like the front of their team as like this one as a particular Pokemon, you can use Metagross to just like bomb through them and like take them out early in the game. Thankfully, because of my team, I looked it up and some of the ones I picked weren't like top tier, like they weren't great in Overused. But I did pick Snorlax, and Snorlax is fucking wow. He seems like really strong, and apparently is really strong. There's a build for him that uses a move called Curse, and Curse essentially, it's just a buff that increases his attack and defense by something like 0.5 or something, or some amount. Like it just increases. It gives him a multiplier at the cost of his speed. So you're basically always going to be going second in the turn. But he gets really fucking tanky. He gets really tanky and does a decent amount of damage. So I figured out this little team where Slacking. So I got my Slacking, my big sloth guy. He can do some pretty decent damage, but he has a unique trait where he basically falls asleep between every round, or between every turn. So you can do like a big attack with him, but then he falls asleep and you have to swap him out for someone else. So it's like a hit and run style of play. So I'll swap him out for my Donphan, my big elephant guy, and then I'll have Donphan do some kind of like decently big attack and is able to like maybe tank something back. And then I just kind of like whittle back and forth between them and swapping them out. And then for like really from what I could tell were like the strong Pokemon on the enemy's team, I would get my Metagross and I blow them up, and then the backbone of my team was Snorlax, and then I would pull Snorlax out, and I would just like battle of attrition them, war of attrition them to death, and then I really don't know what to do with Salamence, and Gyarados, that was the last one I made because I couldn't find that many other big bodies. I considered maybe swapping Gyarados for like some tiny little Pokemon that might have like, they could be like the mascot, that could be like the joke. The protect the baby team. But yeah, like I'm sure like none of this is very advanced, and I'm probably wrong on a bunch of stuff and my tactics are terrible, but just starting to think about that was fun. And what was neat about it was that cutting out all the bullshit and actually having some kind of like real strategy to play against forced me, again, like, because I need to be forced me to engage with Pokemon's battle system in a way that the main games never had. And I wish there was just like a spin-off that was like this, that was more focused on battling or something like that, you know? One of the reasons I think I had such a positive impression of Pal World was that it was like a Pokemon spin-off that it's the kind of spin-off I wished we'd been getting. It's just, off-brand Pokemon. And I was like, man, this is so cool. This is like an idea that I didn't, like, it's not like I've had this idea, but it's the kind of idea that I've been thinking about, like, it would be cool if there were a game where you had cool interactions with your Pokemon and you could do cool stuff with them, and there are more mechanics beyond really bland battling. Like just say like the words Pokemon base builder, and already you're like, ooh, that could be cool. What could you? Like there's all these interesting ways to use that world that the mainline games I feel like just don't in any real gameplay sense. It's all just, if anything, just background dressing. I always thought it was so cool that like Pokemon just do daily jobs. Like there'll be a Machamp doing construction or something. Yeah, so Pokemon Showdown, competitive Pokemon. Is it fun? Yeah. Yeah, I got into the flow. I kind of understand the way the main mechanics work a little better now. I have a little bit of taste of some of the common strategies. But it is certainly a lot to get into, and I sort of wish that there was better explainer content. Maybe I'm like a person who I'll look up like a text guide before I'll look up a video guide in a lot of cases. This is the type of thing I think like a comprehensive text guide to like how to get started in it might be helpful. More gaming stuff. My experiences with gaming stuff. We're going to do a quick Slayer report. So I've been talking about Slayer for, I feel like, over a month now. I was mad excited for this character to come to the game, to Guilty Gear Strive. He's finally dropped. I did a live stream that was really fun. Thanks to everybody who showed up for the live stream and played with me in the lobby that we set up. That was tons of fun. Always a good time. And I have been putting in some more hours with Slayer Online. And man, he is really fun. I am really, really pleased with... I know not everyone's going to be just because of certain things. I think if people have a problem with it, a lot of older Slayer players I've seen, their main problem is really just that they just don't like the way that Strive feels and the way that the game is kind of set up. And a character that they're familiar with isn't going to change that. That's just like a matter of taste. Okay. You know what's so funny? This is a tangent. There was a video done by the fighting game competitor, streamer, YouTuber guy, Diaphone, that I just watched. It was him. He went to some tournament or some event, and it was like this. Did he do it on stream? Maybe, I'm not sure. But he turned it into a YouTube video, which was just asking random event goers to help him make a fighting game tier list, like of all time, like every game that you could think of is on this tier list, and he wants them to just like he calls somebody. He's like, "What do you think is the best fighting game of all time?" And then they would say a game. They put it up there. And then they'd have a bunch of different tiers. And basically it was like a top-down strategy. Because that was easier for people to figure out. Like it was a fun video. It was like, what's the best game of all time? And there's like 5 slots that can be in that top tier. And once they're filled up, you have to move one down if you want to add another one up there. And so once the tiers fill up, you have to start swapping them out. There's a limited number of spaces that can go on the list. And he would ask people, why is that? They would say, like, that's the best game of all time. And he'd say, oh, well, you're going to have to swap that out with something else. And they'd say, like, yeah, you're going to have to move something down to a different tier. That's the way that it worked. And they would say, like, best game of all time, Marvel 3. And he'd go, why is that? And they would say, that. And then he's like, well, you got to swap it out with a different game. What game do you want to move down a tier? And they'd be like, Garo. And then he's like, why Garo? What'd you got against Garo? And he's like, it's not Marvel 3. And listening to people actually explain and justify their opinions in the heat of the moment is like, man, people act like they have opinions for reasons, and they really don't. It's just completely arbitrary, completely based on feel. People just... The next time you see someone, especially if you're in a little sub-community, especially like fighting games, just blindly just hate on something and call it shit, I want you to keep in the back of your mind, their opinion is probably based off of like nothing substantial at all. That was a very eye-opening video. It was like, wow, people will just shit on a game for like, fuck it, I don't know, it's not the game I like. Anyway, Slayer and Strive. Right. So I think he's really fun. I think he is really fun. He's a weird combination of aspects from both Exerd and plus R. Like things that he can combo off of that he hasn't been able to since plus R. He gets that now. Being able to special cancel like 2H and 2D is so cool. Being able to, there's like these really fun combo routes. He has so many combo routes. He is a really free-flowing character in the sense that he certainly has restrictions on what he can do based off of the starter he gets for the combo, but there's like a lot of different ways that you can like there's like almost like a Swiss Army knife, like lots of different routes that you can get based off of the first hit or the situation that you're in. There's routes that I find really fun. I love, I'm a big fan of the close slash charge dust routes. I think those are really fun to do. There are these wacky, I can't believe someone found it on the first day. Okay, when someone says that new fighting games are easier, they're certainly right in some senses. Like from an execution perspective, a lot of them are a lot easier at a baseline, right? But there's also just stuff like when we went on stream and I looked up Slayer, like the user-made combo trials, and found like the first or second one I clicked on was the pile bunker loops on the first day of the character's release. Dude, back in like 20 years ago, or in like the 2000s or something, that would be 20 years ago. No one would have found this. People wouldn't have found this for like 6 years. Someone found it in one day. This like weird, really cool combo with these pile bunker loops that are, it doesn't even look like it should work until you see it, and you like, I really had to see it a couple times to figure out what was even going on. But he has these really cool combos where you can like juggle them at a certain height and then do a pile bunker, but like where they're right above your head. They have to get hit when they're right above your head, so that as you're moving forward, they are like behind. You have to like cross them up, but you both move forward together because of weird physics. And then you can like pick them up off the floor with close slash. You can OTG them and then use his brand new 2S, which is like the big claw. And that like vacuums them inward. And then you do another pile bunker, and because they're moving inward, when you shuffle forward to do the pile bunker, they like cross up again. And then you can do that like 2 or 3 times meterlessly. And it's like really cool. And also not easy. I have been labbing those out just every time I hit the training mode, because number one, they're really fun. It took me a while to get, but they are really fun. You can get them off of a lot of things. You can get them off of a surprising amount of stuff. You can technically get it off of any Roman cancel. The timing and the spacing, and it does not feel consistent. It is super inconsistent. I have seen so many videos of really good players, like playing Slayer in tournament or online or whatever, and they have an opportunity to go for the loops, and they do it, and then they drop the combo, And it'll be like at the same point that I'm dropping the combo, like, oh shit, like they just kind of fell out of it. Something with the untech time just timed out, and then they popped out, they did a recovery. And it's like, why did that happen? I guess my timing was like a little tiny bit off on this one move, like this one part of the combo, like the first 2S or something. And it's like, man, actually landing this in a match and getting it consistently isn't easy. It's not easy. You can get it in training mode, right? You can get, I can get sort of consistent with it in training mode off of a single starter, but the timing even changes depending on the starter. Like a counter hit, Master's Hammer, his big leaping move. You can get it off that. You can also get it off of counter hit Bump Ahead, the low, and counter hit It's Late, the overhead. You can get them off of all of that, but the timing for each one changes because of the different heights that they're launched up at. And I have to imagine this also changes depending on like character hurtbox sizes. Weight classes aren't a thing in Strive anymore. They equalized all of the weights for characters, but like I imagine that there's still like some hurtbox shenanigans going on with this kind of thing, and like it's not easy, but that's like what's cool about it. Like when I see someone pull it off and they get like the full loop combo into the wall break and all that, it's really cool. It's like, oh shit, they got it, nice. And it's like, I don't know, having that kind of aspect to the character of there is something really cool and impressive you can do with them is really neat. There's like other just cool, weird, random stuff. Like, so I was a little bit wrong on the Hand of Doom, on his sort of reversal move, like he do out of his backdash. So Hand of Doom, so his backdash is significantly worse. It is not nearly as invulnerable as it was. Some people are saying it might be the worst backdash in the game, which hurts. Hand of Doom itself does not have any invulnerability. It's just a weird kind of niche punish tool, and I don't know, maybe it's supposed to not be great. Who knows? But you can use it in combos. You can get like a counter hit 5H in the corner, which will like launch them decently high and then backdash and hit them with the Hand of Doom. And it actually causes a little wall bounce and you can get like a good combo off of it. It's what a weird little conversion that you get off of this niche, weird move. So many little things, like little bits of tech people have discovered. He can do like these forward dash cancels, like these Kara cancels out of his forward dash, where you can cancel it into special moves and get like a surprising amount of extra range on them, which is really powerful for things like his command grab, because his command grab makes his offense really scary. I'm playing him, and there's so many opportunities where I'm like, oh, I feel like I could totally do a better combo there, or I could have totally gotten a better conversion, or something, or oh, there's totally got to be something here. And that's such a fun feeling to have with a character of like, oh man, I could totally work on that. There's something really neat I can do in this situation when I get this specific counter hit, close slash, anti-air, and they're at this kind of height, and I can totally turn this into something. I just need to like get more experience and get more used to it and like learn more routes. It is so cool. He's a very intact character, I think, in terms of his play style and most of his moveset as well. He's very intact, and the new stuff he has, I think, is so cool. Like I can moan and I can weep over little things that he doesn't have anymore, but the new stuff he has is so interesting and so much fun for me to play with that I don't know, I just don't mind. Like, yeah, it's a new version of the character. It's a different version of the character. But as someone who absolutely loves Slayer to death, and would say this is my favorite fighting game character of all time, I am really pleased. I am very happy with his translation into Strive. His animations are great. All of the new poses he has are like really really playing. I love the new animation for his 6K, his funny little somersault overhead kick thing that he's got, because you can still feint it. That's always been a thing. You can hold down the button to feint it, and if you do, he doesn't do the kick, but he just lands and does a bow. It's great. Tons of just little animation things and stuff on his recovery of him doing little sweeps and bows and nods and little flourishes to all of his movements. Like, such a well characterized character. He has stuff that it feels like he was made by people who really love Slayer. So here's the specific example that caught my eye. I saw this before I even there was like a pre-release preview video done by a Japanese YouTuber who was just describing all the qualities of the character in more detail than like the starter guide was, and there was something that was like, no way. So his new sort of replacement for Dead on Time, right? His new big punch super, the Super Mappa Hunch, aka the Shake My Damn Hand. That's the one where he like literally punches out of his clothes, and then his clothes come back to him and like they turn into bats and stuff, and then like reform on his body. That move, you see the damage, and the damage isn't it's a little bit low maybe for a super, but okay, it's got invincible startup. It's a slow move. It's not supposed to be like a super great move. Slayer's not supposed to have great defense. But it turns out that super can hit twice, and the second hit does way more damage. It does it triples the damage of the move of the super. And I couldn't believe it, because it's a very specific spacing that you have to get it from. Essentially, the clothes flying back to him are like the second hit. And there's a very specific spacing where that hitbox is active. I couldn't believe it that they actually gave him 2 hit setups. So I'm going to nerd out for a second. If you don't know, in previous games, Slayer has had this one super. It's his dive bomb super. They always change what the name is, but it's kind of colloquially known among Slayer players as Choka or Chokagata. Straight down dandy, or up and close dandy, Choka. And Choka has a funny little quirk to it, which is that there are 2 hitboxes to the move. There is one on his body as he goes down, and then there is one on the tail of like the comet that trails behind him. And there are spacings where you can hit in like certain juggle combos. You can hit enemies. You can hit the enemy with both hitboxes and like double the damage, because it like doesn't scale. It doesn't scale. I don't think there's like a forced proration or anything on it. So that's the there are so-called 2-hit setups. They're called 2-hit setups, which are like really highly damaging routes. If you've ever seen like a touch of death on Chip or something from like Plus R Slayer, it's probably using a 2-hit setup. And he doesn't have that super anymore, but the new one he has, they brought it back. I can't believe it's such a specific part of the character, such a specific niche part of the character from these optimal combos, but they brought that back so you can still say that Slayer has 2-hit setups, because he does. And that is so freaking cool. I think that is so awesome. That made me so happy, because it has to be intentional, right? So I look forward to playing a lot more of him. And to, I don't know, just like practicing getting better. He's the first character I stopped at the Celestial challenge, because I was just kind of like grinding games until I found like a natural stopping point, and I could feel myself getting tired. and I got the Celestial Challenge. I haven't done it yet, but he's the first character I've ever gotten that far with in Strive. So I guess something's working. He's my guy. So very happy with that. I look forward to playing him more. I want to talk a little bit about a movie that I completely forgot to mention. This probably won't be very long, but Kat showed me Inside Out, the 2015 Pixar? That was Pixar, right? Yeah, Pixar. The 2015 Pixar movie about, it's like Osmosis Jones for the new school. The one about all the emotions and stuff, and I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about. So, I thought it was good. I'm definitely not like the target audience because I'm not like I'm not a kid, and I actually did not relate. Despite here's what's funny, I didn't. So like one of the big problems for the main. Can you call her the main character, the girl herself? Because she's like, I'll get to that in a second. One of her big problems is that she's moving to a new place. She's moving to San Francisco, and she hates it, which I get. Okay, I'm gonna empathize. I can empathize on that. But like, I had like a big move, and apparently, I just like did not. You know, when we moved from Illinois to California, for me when I started high school. Apparently, my parents both told me that they were really surprised at how well I took it, and I just sort of like adapted immediately. So maybe I'm a weirdo. I know a lot of people, like a lot of kids who go through big moves, have a similar kind of angst. But yeah, I can't. I'm like, dude, what's the problem? What's the problem? Just like go hang out with your fucking non-binary 7th grade friends or something. So I can't tell you why it didn't hit super hard for me, other than I don't know. Here's a weird aspect to that film. I literally just said a second ago, can you call Riley the main character? Because there's this weird thing that happens where there's this weird thing where, so the whole movie, the real main characters are like the emotions. It's like the joy and the sadness and all that, and all those characters, right? In her head. And they're essentially dictating how Riley responds to things. Which is like, you know, obviously in real life, you don't have little characters in your head telling you what to say. If you do have that, I'm going to be the one to tell you to maybe go see a professional. But that's like, you obviously have emotions that dictate stuff, but that's like, you have like a psychology and experiences that kind of inform your reactions to things and like what emotions you respond with. But that's all just like that's just part of you. So when you make that like separate characters who themselves have their own emotions, like Joy gets sad and other characters get anxious, right? Other characters get scared when like, oh, it's joy and sadness are gone and they don't know what's going on. Which is kind of like muddies the waters a little bit for me. But there's this odd thing that happens where Riley doesn't really feel that much like a person. She kind of feels like a Gundam, or like maybe a Voltron would be a better comparison, because it's like an amalgamation of different things that are making her up. They're all piloted. It's like she's being piloted by someone. She's like a mecha, and as opposed to like a person. So there's this weird kind of like impersonal feeling to Riley that I get, where I'm like, do I care about Riley, or do I care about the emotions in her head, who are these like characterized people? I don't know. There's something really also, here's something funny. They have that scene where they go into like, oh, the mom's head and the dad's head, and you see their emotions and all that. And a curious thing is that all of the mom's emotions, all of her little emotion characters, are all women, and they all look kind of like her. Like they have her little hairdo and I think her glasses. And then you go to the dads, and the dads are all men. His are all men, and they all kind of look like him with the mustache. And you go to Riley's, and hers are men and women. And they don't particularly look like her in any way. And I'm like, was that intentional? Is there something going on there? I don't think it was intentional. I think it was just they wanted to create some appealing character designs, and then they had the idea afterwards to like, oh, let's show the moms and dads, and wouldn't it be funny if they were just like them? Because they're like, developed out people who are set in their ways and all that, or they're kind of like, they're matured people. Anyway, I thought that was funny. Yeah, the movie was fine. I thought it was good. Kids will like it. I say that about a lot of things, especially things that she shows me. Kids will probably like it. I think I think the children have demonstrated that they do like it, seeing as it's getting a sequel. Did I have any other interesting thoughts about Inside Out? No. So I'm going to talk about the movie that blows Inside Out of the fucking water, and that is Wolfguy, Enraged Lycanthrope. So I first discovered this movie from IMDb recommendations. And the cover, first of all, it's called Wolfguy, Enraged Lycanthrope, which is an awesome name. Second of all, the cover is this Japanese guy holding a gun. There's an explosion behind him. There's like another picture of his face with his eye having like a red glow. And there's like some woman on the ground with her titties out. And I'm like, I have to check this out. So I found it on the Internet Archive, because I guess it's just public domain now. And Kat and I watched it together. And this movie kicks ass. This is awesome. So this is a 1970s Japanese exploitation movie. And there's something really curious about this, because I've looked around at other movies like that. And there's something really interesting. So if you aren't really familiar, exploitation film refers to a kind of, it's not really a genre. It's sort of just like a style or a certain category of movies that I don't know if you'd say are really made anymore. But they were definitely a thing in like the 70s and the 80s. And they were basically movies that existed to exploit niche audiences or interests. And when I say exploit, I mean that is a very specific word that I'm using, because it's not just... there's certain things that are really niche because they love those things. The people who make them love them. Exploitation movies are like some guy with money, some producer says, make a movie about this. Make a movie that's got this. It's like the movie version of clickbait. Or just something that's, highly, highly clickable, that kind of style. Make a movie like this. Make a movie with that hits a specifically maybe underserved demographic. Maybe one that capitalizes on societal fears of the time. So, for instance, there's a whole little subgenre called blaxploitation movies, which were movies from like the 70s and 80s, which were made by mostly like black production studios about black characters in black neighborhoods in the US. And just, I don't know, getting up to all sorts of stuff. And that was called blaxploitation because it was exploiting an underserved demographic in movies, an underrepresented demographic, which was black people. The majority, if you go to the 70s, the majority of big Hollywood movies at that time are, you know, like the dramas or the comedies or stuff. It's like 99% white. There's all these other races, and like, hey, maybe they want to see a movie with them on the cover or something. Let's pump out a bunch of movies. All about black people. I've seen quite a number of blaxploitation films because my dad and I used to watch them on TV, so I have kind of a soft spot for them. There's because of the way that they were produced and the sort of intentions behind them, they're kind of this like hotbed of just bizarre shit, because they're basically being sold on a poster. They're selling you the poster. The poster and the title. They say, hey, Pam Grier, she's a hot lady and she's black and she's on the poster and she's going to be kicking ass and fighting crime vigilante style. And you're like, oh shit. And then you go and you watch Foxy Brown. And like, that's what they're selling. It's super hook. It's all about the hook, right? So when you get to the actual execution, you know, sometimes it can be boring, but other times it can be, you're like, oh man, the people who made this, like whoever wrote this script, whoever directed this was just off their fucking rocker. They did not get here. Like, a lot of people get certain positions because they're marketable. They're kind of safe to an extent, you know? A studio or a producer picks them because they're like, yeah, I think that you can write a script that is going to have enough mainstream appeal to get me a return on my investment. And then you look at these and it's like, dude, that's already done. We fucking made the poster already. Just get whoever. Get whoever. They don't care. They could be talented. They could be a nut job. They could be both. And Wolfguy and Raged Lycanthrope is maybe that last one. It is certainly a fucking nutty ass movie. So here's the premise of Wolfguy and Raged Lycanthrope. It is technically based off of a manga / series of novels called Wolfguy, which is about a high schooler, like a high school exchange student who is the last member. He is the last surviving member of his werewolf clan. And he's going to Japanese high school. And things happen. He turns into a wolf. It actually got a reboot in like 2007 or something as a manga. There's like a somewhat popular meme that I've seen a couple times of, it's like 2 panels and it's like a girl saying woof, and then to the dog that she's talking to, or like the wolf she's talking to, and he goes, "You don't understand." Apparently that's actually edited, but it comes from the rebooted manga. So it's based off of that. This movie is supposed to, this the 70s version. The movie is basically Wolfguy grown up. And it's the edgy, mature, gritty adult Wolfguy story. It has got absolutely everything when you think of a 70s exploitation film. It's got crime, you know, the Yakuza, insane violence, sex, nudity, rape, fucking drug use, and a little sprinkle of supernaturalism there. Oh, fucking government conspiracy. There is so much in this film. It's also an hour and a half. So I'm going to summarize this movie. Okay, so Wolfguy is just driving down the street one day, or walking down the street sometime at night in some city. I think that he's in Tokyo. Walking down the streets of Tokyo at night, this guy starts running around and screaming about like a tiger that's chasing him. Wolfguy's like, "Hey, what the hell is up, man?" And this guy's like, "The tiger, she put a curse on me," or something. And Wolfguy's like, "What the fuck?" And then you go to the POV of the guy, and he's like seeing a vision of like, it's like stock footage of a tiger that they've made like half transparent, and they're like zooming in on over the frame. It's awesome. And then he explodes into wounds, like huge wounds just open up all over his body, and he explodes. And Wolfguy he's like a very classic Japanese stoic protagonist. He always looks at everything. He never has a real emotional reaction. He just kind of looks at everything with a vague look of concern. That's just his expression. The whole movie is just, so he gets called in for questioning because he's the only person who saw this happen, because he followed this guy into an alley to try to help him. And the commissioner is like, trouble always follows you, Wolfguy. And he's really grilling him on it, and he thinks he did something. And then, I'm not kidding you, this is exactly what happens. Someone comes in, they call the commissioner over, and they say, the coroner's report came in. It's a demon. He just says it's a demon, and the commissioner goes, his response is, no way. It isn't like, you're crazy, or what the fuck are you talking about, or is this a joke? It's, that, no way. A demon? Like, and he just says, like, no other explanation. And the commissioner's just like, well, you're off the hook for now, Wolfguy. I guess it was a demon. And it's just done. I thought there was going to be a whole thing where it's like, was going to be a whole thing where, like, Wolfguy has to figure out what happened to that guy and get to the bottom of it to prove his innocence. But no, that is not a factor at all. Instead, he just decides to start investigating this thing for some reason. He gets, like, a tip from some random dude who pulls up. You don't know, like, what Wolfguy's deal is, or where he came from, or, like, what his job is, or what, until, like, halfway through the movie. But this dude pulls up and he gives him a tip about this singer, this, like, lounge singer. Not like a lounge singer. She was also, like, I don't know if they say, she's some kind of singer or whatever. And some shit that happened to her, because there's this lounge singer named Mickey, and she was dating the son of this, like, wealthy financier, who was not happy with their relationship because he wanted his son to get married in, like, an arranged marriage, like a political marriage. So, in order to fucking stop her, or in order to break them up, he, like, does some crazy, he owns, like, a bunch of production, like, music production studios, or whatever, like, music production, he owns that. And he gets the members of a band that he owns the rights to go, like, assault her, and rough her up, and, like, sexually assault her, and she catches syphilis from them. And so she has now put a curse on the members of this band and all the people who did this to her, who were responsible for what happened to her. She has cursed them with a tiger curse, which is what happens. It's like their bodies being torn apart by a tiger. That is actually what happens. So they go to interrogate. He's like, let's go interrogate the only surviving member of this band. And let's go find out what he knows. So I thought they were going to have a whole scene of, like, them showing up to the guy's apartment, and maybe they have an altercation or something. No, they just cut straight to them beating him up on the sidewalk. And, like, what do you know? And it's like, oh, we are just skipping through time. They get ambushed by Yakuza guys, these thugs, and Wolfguy starts, like, fighting them off, and he gets cut. He gets a cut, like, on his hand or something, and he looks up at the moon, and you're like, uh-oh. But no, he doesn't go crazy mode. He doesn't go crazy on them yet. So he ends up escaping because this random white woman... Okay, so Wolfguy has a power that is never explicitly, like, explained, but he has a power which is that anytime he's in danger, there's, like, he sends out a distress signal, and young, beautiful women come to rescue him. So this random white lady shows up on a motorcycle, and like picks him up and he goes, all right. And he just drives off with her to get away from these thugs. And then she takes him to like a hotel and then they have sex for some reason. And he's like, why do you want to have sex with me? And she drops this line that's like, because you smell like an animal. I'm a woman and tonight I need an animal. And he's like, all right, you say so. He doesn't give a fuck about anything that's going on. So he just, what does it even cut to? He ends, you go to the singer, Mickey, who is like performing at this like strip club. And she's just singing. She's just doing a little performance, but she's singing this song about how like a woman's claws are like a tiger. And it about how she's just like killing men and shit. And all the patrons of this strip club are like getting mad because it's the least sexy song ever, and they're like throwing newspapers at her. So Wolfguy just kind of storms in backstage and finds what I think is happening is that her manager is like roughing her up, like beating her up for doing that. And Wolfguy just like punches him and hits him with a chair and then puts the chair on top of him and sits down on it. And then he's like, I'm gonna help you. Come on, let's go. Let's bounce, Mickey. So they go to what the fuck even, oh, he takes her to a I don't even know what he wants, what he's trying to do. He takes her to a casino that's obviously operated by some Yakuza, and he sends her in, and she goes in and meets the guys, and they're like, what the fuck are you doing here? And they take her to like a back room, this big back room, and she's like, I just need cocaine. Please just give me some cocaine. I need crack. And they're like, all right, what do you want? Okay, cool. What the fuck? And she goes, the Wolfguy is outside. He's waiting for you. He sent me in here. So then they just go out and grab Wolfguy and take him in. And they reveal that in this room, for some reason, I don't know what, were they expecting him or something? Literally, the guy just pulls open a curtain, and the guy who gave him the tip about Mickey is like being hanged, like he's actively choking on a noose, like he can't have been there for that long. And there's also that dude that they beat up, the mob member, the band member, who's like just tweaking out. He is freaking out about the curse. So Wolfguy has this like little fight scene where he's fighting off like 20 guys at once, of course. And then they get distracted. There's like a guy pointing a gun at him, and they get distracted by the band member exploding from the curse. And Wolfguy like grabs the guy's gun and turns it around, and he's like, "Y'all, you guys are gonna explode too. I'm gonna go help my friend down and then kind of ditch him. And Mickey, you and I, let's get out of here, baby." So they go to like a hotel, and Mickey is talking about how like she put a curse. There's no explanation for how she put a curse on this guy or these guys, how she knows how to do that, how this even works. What was that like? What was there's no explanation. It's just a thing that she did because a woman's claws are like a tiger's, baby. So, she tries to have sex with Wolfguy, and he, like, turns her down. He pushes her away, and he's like, no, it's not right. And she, like, goes and lies down, and he goes and walks to, like, the window, and he has narration, and he drops the hardest line in cinema history when he goes, "There's a disease worse than syphilis. It's called hatred of mankind. And I had just contracted it from Mickey." Dude, fuck yeah. That goes so hard. I want to mention throughout the movie, he is rocking the hardest fits. He is always in like these big overcoats and like trench coats and stuff. He looks sick as hell. He is such a cool 70s Japanese fashion look. I find a lot of the outfits from that time very charming. I actually like the fashion sense from specifically the Japanese 70s. I think they're very cute. So then we cut to what might be the best scene in the whole movie, which is later that night. The door slowly creaks open, and a man in a dark coat and sunglasses and a hat walks in. He steps in, step by step, and it's a hitman from the mob. He's coming to take her out. And as he's opening the door, you see behind the door, Wolfguy is waiting for him. And there's a shot because the door has these little, closet doors. They'll have slats, where you can kind of look through them at a certain angle. Wolfguy he's behind the door. And he attacks the dude. He takes him by surprise. They have this whole scuffle. Mickey is asleep the entire time. She is out cold. Wolfguy and this guy have this whole brawl in the hotel room in the dark, lit by moonlight. And I think the greatest moment in the movie, the hitman, he gets a few steps of distance. He reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a little mouse. He pulls out a little white mouse and he tosses it on the floor and it scampers away. And Wolfguy goes, "What the fuck?" And then he looks up and the guy has a rope that he's swinging around Wolfguy's neck to fucking incapacitate him, to fucking choke him out. I was like, what the fuck was that? He had a confusion mouse in his pocket. There's so many questions. Was he just carrying the mouse? Was he expecting to use it? As far as he knew, it was just Mickey, maybe Wolfguy, both asleep or something. What was he going to do with the mouse? Does he just keep it on him? Why was his first thought to toss it to the floor? Not to harm it. Nothing happens to the mouse. It doesn't get hurt. It doesn't do anything. It just hits the floor and then just runs off. Was he expecting that to be a confusion? It's there's a 5D chess version of the fucking pocket. And with the pocket sand meme, from King of the Hill, the pocket sand, that's that'll blind you. Throwing sand in someone's eyes is actually that's an actual attack. He just tosses a mouse to the floor and is just betting on the fact that his opponent is so confused by what just happened, and if they really saw that he has enough time to pull out a rope and lasso Wolfguy's neck. So they're fighting, they're wrestling on the floor. Wolfguy, he's in a bad spot. He's in a bad situation. This might be the end for him. When suddenly, bang, the guy gets shot in the back. And Wolfguy's like, what the hell? And he looks up. He takes the noose off. He looks up and he sees in the doorway, there's 3 people. 2 of them we haven't seen before. 2 random guys. And that white lady from before. What's going on? So this is officially the end. Mind you, this is 40 minutes into the movie. All of this shit has happened. This is the end of the Yakuza storyline. It really doesn't come up ever again. I think there's one scene where Wolfguy goes and just kind of appears in the office of the finance guy who caused all of this and just kind of tells him that he's going to explode soon and then leaves. But that's kind of it. That's actually kind of funny foreshadowing because now begins the second half of the movie, which is a completely different storyline in which basically the government has they've learned about Mickey's curse. And now they're going to capture her to see if it really works, if she can really kill people with her mind. And they kidnap the finance guy. He shows back up. They kidnap the finance guy and they have him restrained on a table, and they're in a padded room, and they tell her to just kill him, to use her curse on him, and he explodes. You just see like the blood hit the ceiling. He explodes, and the people in the observation room are like, oh shit. So the government is now using Mickey as basically like the death note for them. So that then they're using her to kill their political opponents, which is like the weirdest turn of events. Wolfguy is the only other person who knows about all of this. And he's basically being held captive because they don't know what to do with him yet. And they go in and they're like, are you going to work with us? And Wolfguy's like, I only want you to free Mickey. I need you to let her go. She deserves to be free and deserves to be happy. And they're like, all right, fuck you then. And they start performing torture surgeries on him. There is like a gnarly, like 5-minute sequence of Wolfguy strapped to a bed, like an operating table, and them just cutting him open with pretty grisly looking practical effects. Just cutting him open and sticking shit inside of him and just messing his insides up, and it's fucking really gross. Kat had to look away for it. I could stomach it, but it was definitely like, what the fuck? So they're just doing torture surgeries on him, with no anesthetic, of course. At one point they pull up, so like one of the dudes who like came in was, sorry, there were 4 people who visited, who like, took them away when they found them at the hotel. One of them, I had to pause the movie because he is the most Mexican looking Japanese guy I have ever seen. He looks like his name is Pedro Nakamura. They wheel that guy up on another like operating bed, and they start like exchanging blood between them. And it's like, okay, what? So there's this thing, right, where we get flashbacks to Wolfguy's past and to him as a little kid when his mother was raising him before they all got killed by like Japanese rednecks. And Wolfguy is told by his mom that on the 15th day of the lunar cycle, you will become invulnerable. You are just invincible. And there's a shot of him like in this cell, still with like an open body, like in his cell, and he looks up at the window through the bars. And he looks up at a window and he sees the full moon. And he looks down and he sees like his wounds healing and like all of his fucking guts like sucking back into his body and sealing up. And he like grabs the bars of his cell. He like rips the chains off, and then he grabs the totally not rubber bars and pries them open. And he escapes, and there's this whole escape sequence inside of this really like it's supposed to be like a secret military base, but it looks like Pee-wee's Playhouse with like yellow walls. It's so weird. And he's like running down a hallway. I think my favorite moment is he's running down a hallway and a trap door opens up underneath him. And it's not a very tall hallway, right? And he looks above him and he grabs onto these bars. For some reason, at this one spot in the hallway where the trap door is set up, there is also like the ceiling is raised up. There's like a cut taken out of the ceiling, and there's just like monkey bars, and he grabs them and they're actually electrified. So he just falls into the pit anyway. And it's like, why have the bars in the first place? If they're just going to be electric, why do that? It's completely unnecessary. So he's in this tough spot. He falls into like a lower level. He's getting ambushed by guards, and then White Lady comes and saves him. And she's like, "I love you, Wolfguy," because of course. And then she gets shot, and he's like, "You fuckers, you killed my white woman," and he runs off. And I'm like, okay, I forgot to mention. He has a dramatic fight on the way out with the Mexican Japanese guy, with Pedro Nakamura. he has a dramatic fight because now this dude is a werewolf. He's like a part werewolf, and they both wolf out. Unfortunately, there is no real special effects or makeuping, which is probably the most disappointing part. He doesn't actually turn into a wolf. But they both wolf out, and they, like, howl, and they have, like, this fight in the air, and the wolf guy just kills him in, like, one slash. He just fucking, it's a wash, dude. And the guy is like, cause he has this whole speech up before they fight. That's like, I am the only one who can defeat you. I am your alter ego. I am, the only one who can defeat a wolf is a wolf himself. And then he just dies in one hit. And he screams at the sky, and it starts raining and thundering. It's awesome. So Wolfguy escapes. And, with the help of the second woman who has come to his service, his saving. And he just kind of he says, fuck humanity. I'm going back to my birthplace. And he goes back to the countryside to visit where his village was, or where they all got killed. And he gets ambushed by the descendants of the same, the children of the same, rednecks who killed his clan. And he's about to be he gets captured, and they're gonna sell him off or something because they don't know he's a wolf. And then, of course, what happens? The distress signal goes out, and the only attractive young woman in this group betrays them, saves Wolfguy, and takes him away to a remote cave in the mountains to help him recover from his wounds. And I'm like, okay, so now they're gonna have sex because that's what happens. But they start talking. And she tells him that her name is Taka. And he goes, Taka? That's my mother's name. So now it's okay, now it's too weird. Now it's too weird to have sex with her. I couldn't do that. And she goes, yes, because, we're the descendants of those people who killed your clan, but the only members of my community my mother was the only one who was friends with the werewolves. And she respected and loved them, and she was a friend to the werewolf people. And she told me, I was named after your mother after she died. And my mom told me that there was a single survivor of the clan, and I've been waiting my whole life to meet you. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then at some point while writing this, I imagine the screenwriter smacked themselves in the head and they went, oh, I totally forgot. I want to fuck my mom. So she starts undressing, and I'm like, hang on. No. What are you doing? What do you do? Wolfguy, are you going to say anything about this? And she starts coming on to him. And then you get a cutaway. To it's a flashback. It's a flashback of his mom breastfeeding him as a baby, and then it does a fade transition to him sucking on her nipple. And I'm like, no, Wolfguy, no, you can't do that. That's your symbolic mom. That's your allegorical mother. And he's like, and he starts talking about how it feels like he is being reborn with her body. And I'm like, I cannot believe this is the direction that we went in the last 20 minutes of this film. That we went here. Wolfguy, you have to stop. You're bitch too maternal. So So we just cut to later on, some undisclosed period of time later, and someone is shooting explosives at the mountain. Okay, they're under attack, and Wolfguy and his wife, mom... No, he says, you are my mother and also my wife. And I'm like, dude, you gotta stop. So him and his wife, mom, are escaping down the mountain, and there's like all these military guys attacking them, and he's fighting them off, and they have he gives her like a shotgun. And then finally they're about to escape when a jeep pulls up with those two military guys from earlier, and under a blanket, like a babushka, is Mickey. And they take her out, and now she's been completely brainwashed by them. And they go, and they're like, Mickey, this is the man who abandoned you for some other bitch. Don't you hate them so much? And she's like, I hate you, I fucking hate you, I'm gonna kill you with my tiger curse. And it's like, oh my, what's gonna happen? Because like, there's this music cue that plays every single time the curse has taken effect. And it starts playing, and you start seeing the tiger in Wolfguy's vision, and you're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And then, boom! Mickey gets shot. Taka shot her in the chest, and it's like a classic, like, old Japanese, like, gigantic blood explosion wound, like from old samurai movies. It's awesome. I love that style. She gets shot, and then Wolfguy, he looks over, and Taka is holding the gun, and then as Mickey is falling to the ground, Taka, his mom wife, explodes into wounds and fucking dies instantly. The curse hit her just as she killed Mickey, and it's like, oh shit. So Wolfguy is like, I'm fucking wolfing out now, and he chases these guys down with his super speed in their jeep. And he like jumps on top of it, and he picks up one of them, and he flings him off a ravine, like down off a cliff, down a ravine. And it's like it's clearly like a ragdoll dummy that just like hits and just it's really funny. The whole way down, it just kind of tumbles lifelessly. It just ragdolls the whole way down. And this other guy, he like causes him. He jumps off just as he causes the guy to like drive down another cliff. And for some reason, the car is on fire before he hits the bottom. And then he hits the bottom, and then it just explodes in like a giant fiery explosion. Because I guess they only had enough budget to do one take of it. Sure. So Wolfguy, the movie ends finally. Wolfguy's gotten his revenge for the moment, but he's lost everything. And he takes Taka's, but fuck Mickey. He takes Taka's body, and he's carrying her. He's holding the shotgun, and he's carrying her up the mountain. And he sets her body down, and he looks down the cliff, and he tosses the gun into the abyss. He said, fuck it, he's done. He's done with it. Wolfguy. And that's how the movie ends. It freeze frames on that. What a fucking film. That was an hour and a half. Like, when I say things happen, like, I am barely cutting anything out of that film. It is incredible. What a brilliant piece of work. Unintentional brilliance. This is how I learned. One of the ways that I learned. Kat and I, you know, we agree on things, right? Like, there's a fair number of things that we both like or we both don't like. But when our tastes diverge, I think they really diverge. Because I was like, this movie was awesome. This is like everything you could ever want in a movie. And she goes, yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was whatever. There was a little funny stuff, but yeah, it was whatever. And I'm like, I can't relate. And now I just want to watch 70s Japanese exploitation movies. I just want to watch more of these. Like, just more. Because you go on IMDb and there'll just be like tons of recommended things. And there was, I guess, just this whole interest in Japan in that time period, like in that decade, of not just like crime and sex and drugs, but also like supernatural stuff. They were just, I guess they were just more open to things like that than like American audiences were, where a lot of those movies got made. So a lot of them are just like crime drama story, but also the main guy is a vampire or something like that. And I think it's awesome. I think it is really something special. And I look forward to and I anticipate watching more Asian freak cinema. I can't wait. With that being said, I think I'm going to draw this episode to a close. Our 150th episode. 250? Geez, slow down. Our 150th episode. If you have been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, please leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. I've been Tigan. I'm working on the next video. It might take a while. I've been on a little bit of a delayed schedule, and also the next video is probably going to be like an hour or close to it. So, yeah, it might take a minute, but I'm working on it. Look forward to it. Patreon, I guess. Bye.